Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be using yet another forgotten Pokémon from the second generation. There seems to be quite a few of those guys, but at least lately Game Freak seems to give them a bit more love as Girafarig got an evolution in the latest game. The one cool thing about Girafarig is that his typing was unique all the way until Generation 5, when Meloetta got the same typing. Also, Psychic is my favorite typing, so I hope it will do well today. For the rules, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. Girafarig's stats are decent. They are somewhat spread even, which is usually not great for a solo run, but since the special attack is somewhat high for my standards, I'm sure it will be fine. Also, I got the modest nature, which increases it even further. The only annoying part of all of this is that Girafarig starts off with only tackle as a damaging move. It's not great, but since we have stab, it should be fine for the first few fights. Along the way, I also learned Astonish, but that move is even worse since it is not stab and has less base power. Fortunately, we do not have to worry about that for the first gym, since at level 13 Girafarig learned Confusion. That is a special stab move that will do very well against Roxanne. It's not quite enough to one-shot her first two Geodudes, so I have to take some chip damage from them. That is fine, but then Nosepass crits me and brings me quite low. At this point I was worried because another crit would have defeated me. Fortunately that does not happen and I can defeat Roxanne to gain the first badge, without having to reset even a single time. From here we can do the rest of the stuff around town, and before leaving we can take on the optional fight against May. I gave her a Trico since when it evolves it learns Pursuit and that might do something, but for now it is still very weak and gets easily defeated. Next we can take on the second gym since Brawly only uses fighting types, and since I have a Confusion I don't think it should be any trouble. As expected, his team is not able to take my attacks other than Meditite, because his psychic typing makes it a bit more resistant. Moving on, we can resume our journey and get to Slateport. Here we have to defeat a few Team Aqua Grunts, and since their Carvanas are immune to confusion, I had to use Stomp. Stomp is a good move, decent power and high flinch chances, but it makes contact, so I have to take a bit of rough skin damage. Of course, that is not a problem, since it only does a couple of points of damage each time. After listening to Archie for a while, we can resume the grind, and before not long, we have to take on the next fight against our rival. As previously mentioned, this one is a bit more scary since her starter now knows a super effective move. Pursuit is decent against me, but Grovyle is unable to do all that much damage, and so with a few more stomps I can destroy her team, and now I can move on to the next gym. I spent a bit of time grinding around Mobile, and then I was ready for Wattson. I also bought Psychic from the casino. Girafarig does learn it on its own, but it will take a lot more levels, and I wanted to have a decent move for this fight. Even though Magneton resists it, 2 Psychics are enough to defeat that Pokémon, and with the biggest wall of this fight defeated, Manectric is unable to do all that much before I can land one more Psychic and defeat that guy too. With that we have earned the 3rd badge, and now we can use the move Rock Smash out of combat to explore the rest of the region. After a while of traveling, we can reach the Meterfall Caves, where we meet the 2 teams, and we are informed about Max's plan to trigger the volcano to wake up Groudon. Of course, we cannot let that happen, and so we climb the volcano and challenge him to a duel. This fight is quite annoying because I cannot use Psychic against my Tiena since he is immune, and so I have to use Stomp, but given my poor attack and Intimidate, it does not do much damage, and that gives him time to use Sand Attack. Fortunately, it is not too impactful, and I can defeat the rest of his team without too many issues. Moving on, after climbing down the volcano, we can take on the next gym. Flannery specializes in fire types, which is not going to be a problem for us. Her Pokémons do not have the highest special defense, and so I felt quite confident that by just spamming Psychic I could get through this without any problems. I guess it could have been bad if Torkoal paralyzed me, but that did not happen, and so the fight was a walk in the park. Since we have now acquired all the first 4 badges, we have to go back quite a while and face our dad for the 5th one. Norman is definitely the hardest fight I had so far. His Pokémons are kind of tanky, so it's not guaranteed that Psychic will defeat them. And of course, Slacking is a big guy. His facades deal a lot of damage, but I am able to defeat him with just 2 hits, which was quite a bit surprising, and made the fight very easy overall. Now that we can use Surf too, we can move on to the next part of the region, where eventually we reach the Weather Institute. Along the way, I also learned Thunderbolt, and that sort of reminded me that I could have used Shockwave earlier into the game, but that's fine. Team Aqua's Admiral Shelly is obviously very easy, but then we have to take on our rival for the 3rd time. Team's Aqua Admiral Shelly is obviously very easy, but then we have to take on our rival for the next time. May is still not very dangerous, her Pokémons are not particularly powerful, and as long as she does not get any dark types, I can just spam Psychic and destroy her team. Once we took care of her too, we have to prepare for the next gym fight. Winona could have been a bit annoying if I did not get Thunderbolt, mostly because of Skarmory, but with an electric move, the Metal Board will be easy to deal with too. For the rest of the team, I can pretty much just spam either Psychic or Thunderbolt, and it should be quite easy to get through. The one Pokémon who could be annoying is Altaria, since it has a lot of special defense and it can set up, but he is unable to do so before I can defeat it. While fighting her, I also learned Crunch, which is going to be a great move for coverage and for Phoebe later on. Moving on, we can reach the next town and challenge our rival for the last time. She is blocking access to Substitute as usual, but I don't think I will be using that move this time around. I don't want to always use it, at least on special attackers who do not really care about Intimidate anyway. just to make things a little bit more interesting and not always the same. Anyway, after defeating all of May's Pokémons, we can go to the Pokémon Cemetery, and after defeating a bunch more Team Aqua Grunts, we can get the Magma Emblem from the lady on the top. With this key item, we can infiltrate the cave where Groudon is, but once we reach Maxi, he already awoken the legendary. Unfortunately for him, Groudon flees and he attacks us. This time I do have something for my Tiena, but since Thunderbolt is not stab and my special attack is not crazy, it is able to leave one hit. That allows him to slow me down, and then he can capitalize on that with Crobat and confuse me. I thought this time the RNG was on my side, but then I hit myself twice against Camerupt, and he also chunks me a lot with a couple of earthquakes. Fortunately, I can get through the fight without losing, but that was quite dangerous. Next, we also have to infiltrate the Team Aqua base, but here we are only able to find one of their team admirals. He is not exactly a great challenge, and so we can move on and resume our training, because our next fight is going to be somewhat challenging. Tate and Liza specialize in psychic types, which is not fantastic for us. It is nice that their best attacking move, Psychic, is not very effective against me, so I will be able to take quite a few of those. But Claydol is the exception and attacks with Earthquake. That move, on the other hand, does quite a bit of damage to me. During the fight, I think I made a mistake by taking down Solrock, because that allowed Lunaton to come out, and Lunaton knows Hypnosis. Fortunately, it misses, and the berry puts it just away of the potion range. But this could have been very bad if the sleep move would have landed. With only Claydol left, I thought it would been easy, but then he uses Light Screen. That's bad because it's barely enough to not be a two-shot, and that makes it a lot more scary. Fortunately for me, his AI sort of broke and he decided to use Psychic, because if he kept using Earthquake, I would have died for sure. Now that we have acquired the penultimate badge of the region, we have to do some more fighting in this island by helping Steven deal with the leadership of Team Magma. This fight is a bit annoying too, mostly because their Pokémons are dark and no crunch, so it could be bad. The one redeeming thing is that by defeating Tate and Liza, I got the Calm Mind TM, and I immediately taught it to Girafarig. That move allows me to increase both my special attack and special defense, which means that after using it, I will take a lot less damage from dark moves, and I will be able to deal more damage with my special attacks. The main annoying thing about this fight, though, is the confusion and the status effects. I got hit by a Confuse Ray along the way, and that was not very nice on their part. At least I did not hit myself too many times, and so after a few more attacks, I can finally take care of all of their Pokémons and be done with the Team Magma. As a reward for this fight, Steven gives us the Dive HM, and we have to use it to reach the seafloor cave where we find Kyogre still asleep. Archie arrives soon after and challenges us. Unfortunately for him, his TL does not take Thunderbolts too well, and since my Tiena allowed me to use a Calm Mind, I am now sure that everything is going to die in a single hit. Once we have finally finished off the Team Aqua 2, the red orb in Archie's pocket triggers and wakes up Kyogre anyway. Now that both of the legendaries for this region are awake, the weather is a mess since one controls rain and one controls sun. To put an end to that problem, we have to go ask Rayquaza for help since it can stop the two legendaries from bickering. That's not too hard, and it also did not take much time as I already explored that part of the region earlier. Once we fixed the legendary problem, we can take on the last gym of the region. Juan should not be too dangerous. We have Thunderbolt to deal with most of his Pokémons, and Psychic for the rest. I was also able to set up a Calm Mind at the start, since most of their damage is water and so it's special. From here, the fight was quite easy as I can just spam moves over and over again. The main issue is Kindra, but it too is one-shotted, so for once we are saved. Now that we have all of the badges, we can enter the Victory Road where we find Wally waiting for us. His team is quite diverse and contains multiple typings. Unfortunately for him, since I know that his Altaria is most likely going to set up, I set up myself too, and with a couple of Calm Minds under my belt, I am sure I can take on pretty much anything he has. I misclicked and used Crunch at first, but that did not get me punished fortunately, and from there the Psychic Sweep can begin. I'm a bit surprised that Magneton falls in a single hit, but I guess I am at +2 and it's a stab. The only thing that will leave is Gardevoir, but I have Crunch for that Pokémon. And so in no time we are done with Wally 2. After getting through the rest of the cave, we can enter the league, and here our first match is going to be against Sidney. Once again I misclicked and used Crunch, and that's very bad as it allowed Mightyena to use Sand Attack. I quickly defeated that Pokémon and then tried to set up against Shiftry, but I got Swaggered, so yay! And of course, since I hit myself quite a few times, he takes the opportunity to set up multiple double teams, so this fight is going very poorly. But then I got a lucky crit Thunderbolt, which takes me out of the bad situation. I still have lowered accuracy, so this could be a problem, but fortunately that does not come up throughout the rest of the fight, and so I can finish off Sidney. Kind of a mess, but at least I did not lose. Phoebe is next, and I am much less worried about her. I can set up a Calm Mind, and then Crunch should be enough to defeat the first Dusclops. This way I don't have to worry about Curse, and while usually I would have to worry about Shadow Ball since I am Psychic, and while normally when using a Psychic type you should worry about Shadow Ball, since Girafarig is part normal, that move does nothing to us. So the rest of Phoebe's team is not that dangerous, surprisingly. Well, at least until we reach Sableye, since it is just barely able to leave a hit, and he tries to troll me with the double team strategies. That works for him for a while, but then he starts using Nightshade, which is also Ghost and so useless, whatever AI random stuff. Eventually we can defeat him and the rest of the team. Once again, this fight was a bit of a mess, but I got through it in the end. Let's at least hope that Glacia is going to be better. And yeah, she ended up being much easier. Her Pokémons are obsessed with hail, and so they will use that move to set up the weather every time they can. I can take the opportunity to use Calm Mind and increase my special attack, and from there, by using either Psychic or Thunderbolt, depending of what I am facing, this fight should be a breeze, as I can now one-shot the remaining Pokémons on her team. Meanwhile, the hail does do a bit of chip damage, but it's nothing that dangerous, since it will only last 5 turns. It stops just in time for me to defeat the last of her Pokémons and get through this Elite Four too. Lastly, we have Drake, and he is probably the most dangerous of the Elite Four. I took a risk and used Calm Mind against Shelgon, because if he used Rock Tomb, it could have been bad for the rest of the fight. Instead, my gamble paid off, and I was able to set up once for free. From there, I thought I was fine with my boosted special attack, but then Salamence leaves and crits me. Ouch! I guess I should be happy I did not get one-shotted, at least there is that. Fortunately, he does not have the time to use another attack, but then Altaria also survives. I sneaked in another Calm Mind as Drake healed, and from here I really hope Psychic is going to one-shot the rest of his Pokémons. Luckily for me, that is indeed the case, and Kindra, his last Pokémon, falls too. Finally, we have reached the end of the game with the last fight against the champion. Wallace should not be too problematic as long as I can set up a few Calm Minds at the start of the fight. To do that, I employed the usual strategy and tried to lower Wailord's HP. Unfortunately for me, he sort of saw through that and used Blizzard instead of Water Spout. I was still able to set up a couple of times, and that is great, also because his attacks are mostly special, and so now they will deal a lot less damage. Walrein managed to use Rain Dance, which is very bad because now Ludicolo is much faster and he could be dangerous. Instead, he only used a Surf, which is great for me. Leech Seed would have been 1,000 times worse. But to even the things, I used Crunch for some reason. Yeah, that was very dumb on my part. Fortunately, Whiscash does not heal after the amnesia, and so I can finish him before he can become a problem. The rest of his Pokémons are weak to electric, but even then, Milotic surprises me by leaving a +2 Thunderbolt. That is kind of crazy. That Pokémon always surprises me with his massive special bulkiness. As he healed, I set it up one more time and finally finished him off with one last Thunderbolt. Not going to lie, using Girafarig was quite fun. I am surprised he did not lose even a single time, but some luck played a factor in that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff. If you have any comments, feedback, video ideas, or anything like that, leave them down in the comments. I'll be sure to read and answer all of them. See you next week. Bye!